Hey gang, so a lot of people are interested in reading classic literature, but they don't know where to start. It can be kind of overwhelming because there are so many books to choose from. And maybe you've always wondered what these books are about, these famous works of great literature, but some of them are very long and maybe reading them feels intimidating. So where do you start? I can help you with that. I'm Dr. Andrew Moore, professor of great books at St. Thomas University. I read and talk about books all day. That's literally my job. And I specialize in working with people who don't know very much about these books and helping to transform them into people who know a lot of things about these books. So I can give you some professional guidance on this. Really, all you need to do is find an entry point. I realize that when you start reading classic literature, there are so many options, it can feel overwhelming. But the thing you need to understand is that you can start anywhere. There's no one book or set of books that you need to read, that you must read before you read other books. I do think, though, that it can help to choose a focus area. So let me suggest a few for you. For example, if you're the type of person who loves science fiction, there are so many great classic science fiction stories and novels for you to read. One of the benefits of reading classic sci-fi, I think, is that you come to see where the tropes and the conventions come from. And you can better appreciate how modern sci-fi writers are in conversation with their predecessors and how they're reinterpreting classic narratives. Another example, maybe you'd like to read the great American novels. Maybe that's a focus area that interests you. A lot of people are interested in these books if they're interested in American history or American culture. A lot of these books are invested in classic American themes, things like freedom, individuality, equality. And I would say a lot of these books, they both celebrate American history and American culture, but they are also often sharply critical of America and of modern life more generally. Speaking of modernity, a lot of people like to begin reading classic literature by exploring modernism. Modernism was a literary movement that became very popular at the end of the 19th century or beginning of the 20th century. When a lot of people think about classic literature, they're thinking about modernism. These are highly experimental works of literature, very interested in questions of literary form. So if you're the kind of person who likes to geek out over literary techniques, these might be the books for you. The real benefit of reading classic literature for you is that it makes your brain a more interesting place to live. It makes you a more interesting person. Our brains are so often underwater. We are distracted and stressed out so much of the time. I think dedicating time to reading great literature can help rewire your brain. Metaphorically speaking, this is not medical advice. I am a doctor, but not that kind of doctor. My prescription for most problems is books. I do have very bad penmanship. This is something that's going to become more and more important, I think, in the 21st century. Learning how to think for yourself, learning how to think creatively and independently. We are being actively encouraged by every billionaire tech CEO and every app on our phones these days to offload the work of thinking to algorithms and machines. You don't need to write. You don't need to do research. Here's a quick AI summary served right to you. And there are certain kinds of questions that AI is going to be really good at answering, and it's going to make our lives easier. But these AI tools are also going to serve you the most generic and the most conventional opinions. We talk a lot about AI slop polluting the internet. I think we have to be really careful that AI slop doesn't pollute our brains. Reading classic literature is a way for you to curate the space inside your brain. We want to make our brains more beautiful, fill them up with interesting ideas and feats of human imagination that inspire and challenge us. We want to stretch and develop our own powers of imagination and thought. Above all, I don't want you to be intimidated. Don't let these books intimidate you, and don't let rude literature snobs intimidate you. These books are also for you. The great writers were writing for you. When they were writing 100 years ago, 200 years ago, they could only dream that in some distant future, a reader like you would find and appreciate their work. And by reading this stuff, you are helping to keep these texts alive. I actually think, in kind of a weird way, this is like a public service, that we are collectively remembering the creativity and wisdom of past generations. And you're part of this. And every time we read these books or we recommend them to someone, or we study them together, we are collaboratively preserving this history of human creativity. And together we're reevaluating these books, figuring out which ones are relevant or meaningful to us so that we can pass them on to future generations. I also want to say audiobooks are your friends. Audiobooks are your friends. I understand there's this debate about whether or not listening to audiobooks counts as reading. I just don't think that's worth getting exercised about. Maybe it's a bit like seeing a live performance or seeing a recording of that performance. Those are different experiences. Okay, audiobooks do allow you to fit reading into a busy schedule. You can read a book while driving a car, or while you're on a treadmill, or while you're doing the dishes. That's hard to do with a conventional book. If you're drawn to reading some of these really long classic novels, maybe like Moby Dick or Crime and Punishment, audiobooks might be something to think about. Here, the length of these works can become a real asset. If you're always out doing yard work, or you've got some big project like painting your whole house and it's going to take you hours and hours, well, you can have one of these great works of literature to keep you company. And just to circle back around to the snobbishness with respect to audiobooks, look, I like paper. I like paper because I like to mark up my books. I annotate them. I make notes, and that's really hard to do with an audiobook. So I get it. I'm pro paper, but I think that book people ought to be united against the forces of illiteracy and ignorance. If someone is appreciating great writing and they're using their ears instead of their eyes, that person is still part of the team. They're part of Team Book. Go Books! I understand too that when we read classic literature, the language sometimes can be challenging. The language can be a real obstacle, but the language is also part of the reward of reading classic literature. The best authors find ways of saying things and describing things in completely innovative and original ways. There are turns of phrase that will become tattooed onto your brain that will change the way you perceive the world. But just like with exercise or learning a new skill, it can take time. It takes effort to gain familiarity and facility with the language. But there is a real return on investment here. The more you read, the easier it becomes to understand. The more you can understand, the deeper and more nuanced your thoughts become. Most things worth doing are hard. They're difficult, and it's good to challenge yourself and to challenge yourself intellectually. You've only got one life, and your brain is too beautiful a thing to waste. You might even find a soulmate among the dead. That's a creepy thought. I didn't mean it to sound so creepy. I meant this to be comforting. It can be creepy and comforting at the same time, I think. Through books, you might encounter someone who lived on the other side of an ocean 100 years ago who can describe you to yourself. Someone who speaks to your soul and feels things the same way you feel them. And that is an incredible gift. And hey, if you want some more book recommendations, you can check out this video over here. I will see you there, and I will talk to you soon.